Thank you, Madam Chair. Each year, under Presidents Republican and Democrat, the United States of America issues a report card on human rights to the world, where we grade other nations as to their record on human rights. That's pretty bold of us, isn't it? To hold ourselves out in judgment of other nations. And one of the things we ask is how those nations treat refugees and children. We don't have a very long record when it comes to refugees in this country, primarily because of location. Haitians, Cubans, Vietnamese, Hmongs. We've had some, but certainly when you look at the state of the world, with 2.3 million refugees coming out of Syria and fewer than 200 coming to the United States, we are kind of on the periphery of this issue until now. Now we get to face it, our backyard, our border. I just got a report about 2 children. It came from the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights at the University of Chicago Law School. Samuel and Emily are siblings, amazingly ages 3 and 6. 3 and 6. They got here from Honduras. I don't know how. When they initially arrived in the United States, they were very quiet. They didn't open up. They were clearly victims of trauma. After 2 months of care and custody of these 3 and 6-year-old children by HHS, Emily revealed that both children had been raped by members of a local drug cartel. I think about those children when I think about this debate. Are they the exception? God, I pray they are. But I'm afraid there are many more with similar stories. So, Mr. Secretary, Secretary Johnson, I think you're a good person. I even have evidence you're a good father because I got to meet your son, and I know you're a good lawyer. When you ask for added discretion so that we can voluntarily deport some of these children, I think about these 2. Where I grew up, in downstate Illinois, you wouldn't enter a courtroom with a 3-year-old or 6-year-old without someone standing next to them, representing them, explaining to them, trying to speak up for their rights. And I worry about what we're asking for here. And here's why I worry. Let's get down to dollars. There's a request for $15 million in this multi-billion-dollar appropriation for direct legal representation to contract with lawyers to represent approximately 10,000 children, 10,000 children in immigration proceedings. I think we're dealing with 50,000 to 90,000 children. And it strikes me that this number is grossly inadequate to make sure these children have someone standing next to them to protect them, maybe to explain this to them. That's the first thing that crosses my mind. The second thing is, what are we returning them to? Honduras, the murder capital of the world, where it is not safe to even have your children outside of your home, where garbage is piled in the streets so the poorest can go through it and maybe find something to eat because that's all they've got. What kind of social service agencies are we referring these kids to when we return them to Honduras? Beds. I get it. I want these kids to be in the safest, cleanest place possible. I couldn't live with it any other way. But as I understand it, 85% of these children are reunited with family, 55% with parents, 30% with relatives. So when we're talking about beds, it sounds like, for the most part, at least 85% of it, it's for temporary beds. I assume that's what we're discussing. Finally, before I ask you to comment on this, I authored the DREAM Act. I'm proud of it. We passed it in the House and Senate. We can't beat the Republican filibuster in the Senate except for the comprehensive immigration bill. I asked this president, my friend, to sign DACA. He did, and I'm proud that he did. And I'm not going to stand here and let people blame those 2 acts on what we're facing today, because during the same period of time, there was a 700% increase in children from those 3 countries to neighboring countries, not the United States. It had nothing to do, as you said, Mr. Secretary, with DACA, which set a 2007 target couldn't come any later than that. So I'd appreciate it if you could respond to this in the time remaining.
Senator, the only thing I'll say is a request for discretion, as long as I'm secretary, means a request for the ability to do the right thing. That's how I see it. I've met with enough of these kids now, including a 15-year-old in Nogales 2 weeks ago who was 3 months pregnant, to have a real sense for what these kids go through. We've heard about how before they leave Central America, some of these kids' parents actually will give them birth control in case they're raped along the way. And so whatever we do, whatever discretion I'm given to address this situation will be the discretion to do what I believe is the right thing for the country and for these kids.
There's not enough money being requested to provide the kind of representation and advocacy to protect these kids. It's not even close. 10,000 out of 90,000? And I think that's Secretary Burwell's world.
There are different portions in terms of sometimes it's provided by Justice, sometimes by DHS. We do provide the counsel that I've described in the initial stages, and then for the extreme circumstances such as that you described, HHS does provide counsel, and we try and connect with pro bono counsel. You are right that we do not have the resources to provide counsel for all the children that pass through and go to sponsors, but there are a group that we do that for.